Some games, ladies and gentlemen, are just unwinnable, and you're about to see one of those such games today on the Two Brothers map. We're playing HMS Plymouth, premium tier 7 British cruiser, light cruiser at that, one of the best at the tier, I would say. One that is quite capable of carrying a game, actually. Nevertheless, what you're about to see is a terrible tragedy. And yet, at the end of things, I feel like I still had a lot of fun. And why is that? Well, it's because victories and defeats aren't primary components to my concept of fun in World of Warships Legends. This game is fun for me when I feel like the decisions I make in a ship have consequences, either rewards for good decisions or punishments for bad ones. And this particular match, it really felt like every decision that I made had consequences and probably ended up being the correct decisions, even though we do ultimately end up losing. Still, at the end of things, I felt satisfied, and that doesn't always happen. So, to sort of explain why, I want to walk you through my decision making. We spawned here on sort of the eastern flank, and we're heading out toward the eastern flank. We're going toward that collection of islands on the edge of the map. We notice that the Benham, which spawned in the center, appears to be heading toward the western flank, which you'll note is already occupied by a friendly DD. We want the Benham to come over here to provide us spotting. Anytime there's two destroyers on this map, one needs to take a flank and the other needs to take the opposite flank in order to spot. Since we don't have a destroyer here, the only way we're going to get any spotting is if either me or this Miyoko in front of me spot the enemy ships with our faces, which is dangerous because we are, of course, lightly armored cruisers. And so the Miyoko has pushed out a little bit in front of me. He's the one that spotted the Boise, or maybe he's been spotted by the Boise, and the Boise shot, thus revealing him to me. But since he's so far out in front and pushed forward, they're going to shoot at him. That's going to give us some opportunities to get some fire down on at least this Boise and whatever other enemies might be coming down this flank. Ideally, the destroyer, the Benham, would be playing the role of the Miyoko. You don't really want to do this kind of thing in a cruiser because, well, as you can see, the Miyoko has about 5,000 hit points left, and he's well on his way back to port. Our fire against the Boise is proving to be pretty ineffective. The downside to HMS Plymouth, which, as I alluded to earlier, is a fantastic cruiser, is that the shells are extra floaty, and they do take a long time to reach the target. But when they reach the target, they are very accurate and very numerous, so they do tend to do a lot of damage, especially to lower tier ships. It's sort of just unfair for lower tier cruisers to fight the Plymouth, honestly. Maybe that's not so obvious right now, but I think a little bit later it will be. In any case, to that Benham's credit, you'll notice he realized that we had no destroyer coverage on this flank, and he ultimately did decide to turn around and come back to support us. Although at this point, I think it's a little bit too little too late. The Miyoko is basically already crippled, and we have the intelligence data we need for this flank. There's a Helena and a Boise here in terms of capital ships. Maybe there's a destroyer, but I don't think I've been hard spotted by one yet. So the intelligence data is what it is. The Benham is here, so I suppose that's nice. Ultimately, I wonder what would have happened if he did end up going down that flank with our friendly destroyer, because if you look over to that side of the map, you'll notice the friendly destroyer is about to round an island facing an enemy destroyer, where he has no help from any of our teammates. They can't shoot at that enemy destroyer, and ultimately the friendly one is going to go down, and that flank is going to collapse. Maybe it wouldn't have if the Benham went there, but well, you can't armchair quarterback. The textbook theory does say the Benham should have come on this flank, and ultimately I'm glad he did. Unfortunately, he deployed a smokescreen while he launched torpedoes at the Vittorio Veneto, which is closing in, and lost sight of him. So I'm pinging him for some more intelligence data. Veneto gets spotted again. He takes one torpedo from the Benham. Unfortunate that I cannot follow that torpedo hit up with some high explosive spam, but the AP spam should be good enough provided we can get the aim dialed into a superstructure. We should start chunking that here shortly for at least some amount of damage, although it doesn't seem to really have stopped the Veneto. He is creeping forward ever so slowly, and we don't want to allow him to get too close to us. We're going to creep back into our smoke screen. Our fire is becoming effective right now, and that's when Veneto decides he's going to deploy his own smoke screen. So we return our attention to the Boise, and basically we're just hanging out here trying to carry out our initial plan of slowing the enemy down, not allowing them to push through this flank and get to our base. Something that I think we are being fairly successful at, given that the ships really have gained no ground on this flank. Unfortunately, our base is being pursued by the enemy from the other flank, which, as you can see, no longer exists. All the ships over there have sunk, and the base is turning red because the last remaining enemy destroyer is inside of it. So the Benham makes the correct decision to turn around, disengage, go back to the base, and try to protect it. I suppose I could do that as well, but I'm hesitant to leave this flank for a couple of reasons. Number one, since the Benham is gone, I really am the only one capable of spotting on this flank unless these enemy ships are shooting at my teammates. And, well, I think something needs to remain here in order to slow down their push. The Helena's on low health. The Boise doesn't have a whole lot of health either. Maybe I can secure some of these kills and get my team some points. We're down to 4 ships right now, so if I can get some easy kills, I mean, the Benham is in the base. He's going to prevent the enemy from capturing it, at least for a time. So at this point, if I start heading back in that direction, then I'll probably get there in time and things will be okay. But this is what I was sort of waiting for, is the Boise. He is on low health. He's pushing toward us. We shot at the Veneto, so we were spotted. He knows our last known location, and I think he's trying to pursue us. So we launched torpedoes into that gap preemptively. He looked like he might have been hesitating, so we take a shot in order to encourage him to, no, still come this way. I'm behind the island, Boise. You want to come around that corner, and you want to sink your American AP into my broadside, right? Well, that's the idea anyway. The Boise, is he going to take the bait? We're not sure here. We're sort of delaying to get confirmation, and confirmation comes in the form of 2 torpedo hits. The Boise did take the bait, and he's broadside. Plymouth has 16 guns, so obviously there's no problem in hitting the Boise Citadel and taking him down for our first kill. That's 2 kills we've secured on this flank. Useful, I think, to our team because it leaves the Veneto completely alone here. He is being forced to retreat very, very slowly and disengage in reverse. My teammates are just burning him down, and at this point, since it's clear he's not pushing, and the Benham has been doing a pretty good job, honestly. This player, it's a nice thing he was on this team, otherwise we would have lost this game a lot sooner, so GG's to him. But anyway, he's still got the base sort of under control. He's contesting it. Obviously, the destroyer is inside. We are now approaching the base, and it's at this point that I do wish I was not playing the Plymouth with the smokescreen. Notice I haven't used my smokescreen at all yet, and I don't know, maybe radar would have been a little bit more handy here. Maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know if I would even have had an occasion to use it. But the enemy Akatsuki is spotted. The Benham is shooting at him. Obviously, the Akatsuki has an HP advantage, and he's got support from his teammates in the cap. But our combined firepower is able to remove the Akatsuki from play, and that just leaves the Fiji and the Kansas in the base. So obviously I decide to shoot at the Fiji first. He's giving me a fair amount of broadside. I've got a ton of guns, and they've got improved British pen and pen angles. Fiji begins to smoke up. He does take a nasty hit there from our battleship teammate. We lose vision of him, so we're going to switch over to the Kansas. Of course, we gain vision of the Fiji instantly as soon as we take the shot. Bit of a disappointment because he's broadside to us. We take the blind shot. I do think it actually hits him, but we don't get any citadels. In any case, Kansas is not the most heavily armored battleship known to man. There's a lot of 32 and 38 millimeter plating all around. Very easy for these AP shells to punish, so we should be able to put the hurt on this guy if we can sit in the smoke screen and just farm him a little bit. You do have to kind of get used to how floaty these shells are, by the way. You see, we can't quite land our shots perfectly, but once you get it dialed in, this thing is just absolutely disgusting, especially if battleships like the Kansas, which aren't super heavily armored, want to give you broadside. There's a 5K salvo into that Kansas. Imagine doing that much damage every 5 seconds. You might as well be a battleship. We get the Confederate and the high caliber there. Kansas is maneuvering because he does not like the AP spam, so we're going to continue to work on him. Meanwhile, on the minimap, Veneto is deciding to push out again, and that is when the Fiji gets spotted in our base. He shouldn't have much longer left to go on the surface of the sea. I would hope he's making a turn out there. We try to predict, lead the shells correctly, and of course the friendly battleship secures the kill. That's fine. Kansas continuing to move forward. It's just me and the friendly battleship now. For whatever reason, the Benham went down. I think he maybe was a little bit too trigger happy with his guns, and that allowed the enemy to just sort of take him out. But at this point, the only hope we have of winning this game is to be aggressive and deal as much damage as humanly possible. The problem is we are caught in a crossfire between two battleships, and we are a light cruiser with essentially no armor and a citadel that appears to have literally been designed to facilitate easy citadels for battleship players. And so now our friendly teammate, the last battleship, has gone down. The Veneto and the Kansas have nobody left to shoot at but me. The Veneto I'm somehow much less worried about. He is not anywhere near as accurate as the Kansas is, and somehow those Italian shells do seem to overpenetrate a lot. Veneto, though, you can see he actually has to smoke up there because we are dealing such significant damage to him with our guns. If he allowed himself to remain visible and broadside like that, I'm confident it would have been a matter of moments before we were able to take him out, but of course he goes dark, so we return our attention to the Kansas, and the slow turret traverse of HMS Plymouth does work against us a little bit here. It takes forever to get our full firepower on our target, and, well, the turrets, yeah, they traverse so slowly. In any case, we're still caught in the crossfire. We're trying to angle against these guys as best they can, but all they really need to do is get lucky once. Maybe we're able to take one of them down, maybe not. In retrospect, I kind of wish I had launched torps at the Veneto, because I think those might have taken him out. And there's a slight possibility I could have taken down the Kansas, but, well, there we go. I think that game was just unwinnable. There wasn't really much we could do about it, but I feel like every decision we made was the best decision we could make in that moment, and I think we're rewarded very well for that, approaching nearly 2,000 base XP on a loss. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.